welcome back to the Crazy Courage Pod, where we talk to entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals of all types. And today we are here with my good new friend, Kyle Lawrie from the Meet the Keepers Wildlife Rescue Center. And I can't wait to hear all about what these guys are up to and what they do, because it sounds crazy compared to, I was telling Kyle off air that we have one dog and he's small, right? But he's awesome and we love him. And we find he keeps us pretty busy. So I just can't wait to hear about Kyle and what keeps him busy. So Kyle, what is it that keeps you and your wife busy these days?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having us on the podcast. Super excited to be here.
Awesome.
I got a chance to watch some or listen to some of your other podcasts, so very excited to be here. So thank you for having us on. And basically, a day-to-day for us is just as wild as you can imagine. So we have just over we have just over 60 animals in our care at the moment, and that ranges everything from arachnids, so tarantulas and scorpions. We've got snakes, lizards, parrots, ferrets, chinchillas, foxes, pigs, groundhog. We got bunnies. There's a wide range of variety of animals that we work with on a very regular basis, and so it's nonstop every day of taking care of them, feeding them, cleaning after them. Just everything in the day-to-day is just nonstop. And then, of course, we have our presentations where we promote responsible pet ownership, wildlife conservation, really educating the public on the importance of responsible pet ownership and conservation.
Wow, awesome. Okay, so you said you have 60 animals right now, like let's say give or take. Now, is that a normal number for you? Is it high? Is that lower? What is that average?
At the moment, it's pretty. We want to grow into a much larger space, and so we're limited on space. As pretty much every other rescue in the world is.
Yeah. What you can do, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And you always want to make the habitats bigger for the animals. You want to make them feel as comfortable as possible. So we're always trying to grow the habitats, which of course limits your space. So as you keep growing, and then the idea is to get a huge building where everybody could live really happy and really comfortable. And then of course the financial aspect of that becomes the challenge. And so there's always which one works best, which way do you go? So we at the 60, 70 range, we're very comfortable, but of course we'd love to take in as many rescues as we can. But anything below that, we kind of realize like, hey, we got space, let's bring in some more and take it from there.
I don't even know how you do that. Like honestly, comparing your wildlife rescue, right? Because you guys do a lot of more exotic animals, but like compared to like a dog rescue, right? Dog rescue, like, okay, we can house 50 dogs and they all have, various sizes maybe, but their needs are quite similar. But, for you, it'd be a lot different. Like, well, today we have a lot of foxes, but tomorrow we might have a lot of, I don't know, tarantulas. Like, that's completely different sides of the spectrum. Like, you can't just, so I don't know how you guys do that. I don't know how you decide.
Well, here's an interesting story of what happened one time. So we had this habitat with a scorpion.
Yeah.
We named the scorpion Darth Vader. I think it's just a great name, awesome. Right? Nice black scorpion. And so we had Darth Vader, and it was a great scorpion. We were 100% sure it was a male until we opened the habitat one day and found 18 baby scorpions on the back. But we had him for over a year. He was not with any other scorpions. We're not a breeding program, so we don't breed the animals. But sometimes, of course, it does happen. Nature happens. And this one, he had never been with another, or she had never been with another scorpion, but they can retain it. And when they feel comfortable, they can release it. And then basically gave us 18 babies overnight. And then you're thinking, okay, they can stay with mom for a little bit, but as they get bigger, we have to take them out, find 18 habitats for these scorpions.
Holy, right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So some things do happen quite often, and you just have to roll with it and figure out what to do from there.
Now, is that part of the fun? Not necessarily in discovering new animals and how to take care of them?
100%. And sometimes it's as simple as the smaller animals. Like we had rescued a hedgehog. Okay. When we got the hedgehog, you're thinking everybody's had a hedgehog as a pet or knowing somebody was having a hedgehog as a pet. And we're a rescue, so we took in this hedgehog, and then we realized, like, what does a hedgehog eat?
Yeah.
Right? So you're like, oh. So then all the research happens. Then you're sitting at home researching every little aspect that you can of this hedgehog and found out all the information, bring them in. Now, here's the thing. It's a lot of fun, and it changes every day, right? There's something new every day that happens. but running the business side of it is extremely difficult because of the changes.
Sure.
Because then you're booking a presentation for a school.
Yep.
You want to do some education. They say, we want this animal, this animal, this animal.
Yeah, like
we go,
it's
well,
yeah, you could just put in. Oh, we'll just put in an order. Sure.
yeah.
It's
And
not
then it's
simple.
like, but even if we have the animal, we can't guarantee that they're going to be comfortable, healthy.
Sure.
They're going to, not want to go out that day. So there's so many different aspects to it where you're like, we want to give the absolute best service we possibly can. However, we can't guarantee anything in terms of animals. So there's so many different aspects. So running the business side of things makes it very difficult.
Yeah,
However,
sure.
the day-to-day is keeping it interesting. And I love doing research and looking into really deep, like fun facts and everything. Every time we get something new or a new opportunity, then we're like, okay, then we start looking into it and love that aspect of it.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's okay. Tell you what, I want to hear more about this stuff. I really do. But I feel like we're gonna kind of overlap when we go back to your origins. I want to talk about your origin story. I want to go back to the beginning, find out, what makes Kyle Kyle and what brought Kyle to this point. So way before you had a wildlife rescue center, like how far back do we have to go before it led to this?
So Meet the Keepers was founded in 2016.
Right.
I started working with animals.
Now, are you one of those guys who's like, as a kid, you're like, oh, I want to be a vet when I grow up. I love animals. Like, how did you know you had this love for animals? And clearly,
I was very honest with myself growing up, knowing I had no idea what I wanted to do when I was older, which meant I was able and willing to take on every opportunity. Right. It didn't make me go, okay, I'm going in this direction. Let's do it. Let's have fun. And so when I was 15 years old, my mother showed me a newspaper clipping of like different jobs hiring, and there was a zoo that was hiring. And so I thought, you know what, let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. Right. And so I did it. And part of the training was going into the tiger house.
Okay.
And so I was 15 years old, going to this tiger house where they're just trying to like pretty much murder anything they can. Like it was a wild scenario. There's 4 tigers and they were just jumping at your face, but you were in the cage.
Is it like Tiger King? Like
a little bit better in my opinion.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. But I don't want to say similar, but let's for the sake of it, it's fairly similar.
Awesome.
And so they were kind of jumping at me, and I was amazed at 15. I loved the idea of it. And I didn't know any better.
Feel safe?
Absolutely not.
No.
Like there's no part of it felt safe, but I was 15, so I loved the adrenaline rush of it.
All right.
And I was with the owner at the time, and he was like, "Oh, you seem very comfortable. So how about you take charge of this section?" So I was like, "Done." So I had like the lions, the tigers, stags. Like it was amazing at 15, and I thought I was on top of the world. I was, just full of confidence, cocky to no end, and just how could you not be, right? Like I was in high school.
My first day at work, trial by fire, has never been, someone trying to murder me or, So
yeah. So I'm in high school, and when I go on weekends, I'm going to work with tigers. Like that was my life at the time. So I thought I was on top of the world.
Yeah.
And then a few scenarios happened as I turned around 18. I started getting overconfident and trying different things, and then I ended up getting bit a couple of times, and it ended not too well. In that sense, I still stayed and everything was good. It was just I was pushing my limits because again, from 15, I was overconfident. Oh, yeah. By the time you're 18, 19, 20, you realize like I'm untouchable. I'm the king of the world. Right? I was too, sure. I'm the king of the world, and I can do whatever I want. So I needed those reality checks of realizing how strong and how dangerous this role actually was.
Yeah, be careful with those reality checks, though. You lose an arm sometimes.
For sure. There was some times where you're like, "That could have been so much worse," but I thought I was, it was great. This is a fun time.
Totally.
And I ended up meeting a great friend of mine now, and he was from England, but he had backpacked throughout the world. And so we decided, you know what, let's just leave and go backpacking through Asia.
Okay.
And so again, I'm never going to say no to an opportunity. So we left that world, went out and backpacked through Asia, through Southeast Asia for about 3.5 months. And while I was there, I had gotten an email from somebody who my brother knew at the time, who was telling me that, he really liked my brother's work ethic and he wanted me to come out and work for him. And that was in sales recruiting. So completely
A little bit.
other end of the spectrum, right? So just go into the sales recruiting side of things, leave everything else behind. I'm 20 years old at this point. I've worked with animals. I've traveled. I'm like, you know what? Let's try the office life. Let's give it a shot. So I ended up doing that. When I actually interviewed while I was in China at a hostel, I interviewed for the job.
Wow.
Right? It was Skype at the time. So Skyped with them. Everything was good. So by the time I got back from Asia, I had a job. So I got back on the Saturday. I had a job on the Monday. So now I'm jet lagged. I'm exhausted, ready to go. Now it helped because I realized that the office life was not for me.
Okay.
Right. But I learned so much, right? I learned how to grow up. I was super immature, very overconfident, didn't really understand what I was and wasn't capable of. I truly believe that I could do anything I ever wanted and I could do surgery, just show me how.
Right.
Like it was just mentally, I was just oblivious to what life really was. So it really brought me down. It humbled me a lot and had me realize like, okay, you have to be mature. You have to grow as a person and not just think you can do it. You actually have to do it. So it really helped. And while I was doing that, I realized like, you know what? I want to keep working with animals.
Okay.
I want to keep working with animals. And then at the same time, I was like, I feel as though I can try and do something on my own. So I was torn. As to what to do. And again, another opportunity came up.
Tough, right? Because it's not like there's tons of local opportunities to work with animals, right? Like you can work at the Humane Society. There's that zoo. Maybe some kind of dog, cat rescue. Like, I would imagine, you're pretty limited when you're thinking, I want to work with animals specifically. Certainly exotic animals. It's not like they're
100%,
right?
100%. And that's where I kind of got lucky too. While we were in Asia, we stopped at a bunch of facilities and panda sanctuaries and different where I got to see these animals up close. And because of my experience, we got to get to behind the scenes type stuff and really see the ins and outs of some amazing places. Right. And so I was like, wow, this is actually incredible. So I'm really have this passion for animals that's behind me right now. I want to see what else the world has to offer. And what the next is that the world had to offer was a cleaning job. So before I had left for Asia, a year before I left for Asia, I had applied to get a government job at Parliament Hill.
Okay.
So cleaning at Parliament Hill, right? And my plan was, because I wanted to get as much money as I possibly could. So my plan was, it was a 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. job. So I'm going to clean from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. And then after 8 a.m., then I can go to a job and work. But I never heard back. So about a year and a half later, they called me and said, hey, you got the job. So I was like, I might as well do it now, right? So while I was doing the sales recruiting, I was also cleaning Parliament in the morning.
Wow.
And then I wanted to work with the animals. So on weekends, I would work with the animals. So I was working 7 days a week, but that also helped me. So it all came to realizations.
What were we doing with the animals on the weekend?
I was back at the zoo, just helping out, wherever they needed help. So wherever they needed help, I would help out on the weekends. And it was incredible. Because what happened was I was 20 years old, and with all 3 jobs and everything I was doing, I was making probably around $90,000 a year at 20 years old.
Well, that's nice.
So I decided I'm going to get a sports car. And then I got a motorcycle, and I had an apartment downtown. And I was like, I'm living the life. Right?
Yeah.
But now I can't take a day off because I've overextended myself, because I can't say no to an opportunity. So I had somebody call me and say they want to sublet their apartment. It's this much. Yep, done. I'm the guy. So I got this fully furnished apartment, right? So I was just, again, I couldn't really understand and grasp how the world worked. Basically got all of that and realized very quickly that I had the car, I had the bike, I had the apartment, I had money, and it meant nothing.
Okay.
It meant and it actually allowed me to realize, because I always heard money can't buy you happiness.
Right.
I'd always heard that, and I was like, it tends to be rich people who say that, right? Like, it's somebody with money who says that.
You give me the
And
money, and we'll see if I believe you. Well, I'll find out for myself.
exactly. And so what it made me realize was money can't buy you happiness, because I had all the money in the world, but I couldn't take a day off. I couldn't stop working,
Yeah.
or else I couldn't pay my bills.
Right.
And what it meant to me was, as long as you can pay your bills, right? As long as you have enough money to pay those bills, after that, if you're happy with no money, you'll be really happy with money.
Fair.
But if you're not happy with no money, money is not going to solve that problem. So it helped me realize that, and gave me that altruistic type mentality where it's not about the money, and it's never been about the money. So what I realized was, you know what? I really enjoy traveling, and I really enjoy working with animals. That's my passion. And so what I did was I sat down one night and I applied to 106 zoos around the world.
Around the world.
Around the world.
Anywhere that was, you Google
anywhere,
zoos and
100%. I went onto their website, applied, done.
Wow.
Out of 106, I had worked in zoos for 8 years. Applied to 106, got one email back.
Okay.
One email back brought me to Kansas. I ended up in Wichita, Kansas.
All right.
Got on a plane, went to Wichita, Kansas, and applied there. But what I realized was I also enjoyed the entrepreneur side.
Okay.
So I ended up in Kansas, and Kansas did not work out because I couldn't get a visa, because zookeeping didn't exist on the visa paperwork. Right? So I was like, unless I was a zoologist.
Yeah.
Exactly. Unless I had the document, the diploma that I'm a zoologist, I couldn't go. So I was like, darn. And then it made me realize I want to be the entrepreneur, but I don't know enough about business. So then I thought, okay, what's my experience? Working with animals, starting a business, very difficult to do. And at that time, I put all my money into the apartment. I left the apartment. Now I've started lowering all my expenses, and I ended up going back to the zoo full time. And because I was like, the office space just isn't my thing. Right. And then I decided I need to learn business, but I have no money. So I sat down with my brother and we looked at what businesses can we start, or can I start without any money in my bank? And one of them was cleaning company. Okay. I had experience in cleaning the prime minister's office. So I thought, you know what, why not? So I started a cleaning business, and it started off as what it was called the cleaning family. Right. So as you can see, I kind of went all over the place. Right. But I wanted to learn as much as I possibly could. But learning by reading was not something I could do. No, I needed to learn by doing.
Same.
Right. So I learned the business side of the cleaning family, and I realized, like, when it came to working in homes and cleaning people's homes, I was okay with it, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to learn business to consumer, but also business to business sales. Yeah. So I stopped the cleaning family and went to the small business cleaners, which then became a small business cleaning. And it was all based on the marketing. It wasn't a small business cleaner. It was the small business cleaner. And so then it got me into sales and working with finding clients, ended up with some fantastic clients around the city. Again, realizing that this is okay, but it's not really what I want to be doing. So I thought, you know what? I need to work with animals again. It was that passion of working with animals. But again, I'm taking everything I've learned throughout the years and bringing it together.
Nice.
And now it's travel and work with animals. And I ended up meeting Little Ray's, who's an Ottawa organization. Yeah. And met with him. It was a great meeting. And he tells me, okay, this is great. He goes, we're actually headed to Toronto this weekend as like a little training exercise to see kind of what we do. Do you want to come with us? And I said, sure, I'll head over. So I show up to this training. He goes, we're going to catch caiman. Now, I had worked with animals. I had no idea what a caiman was. And I forgot what he had said. So I couldn't even look it up when I got home. So I was like, I'm going to do something in Toronto to catch an animal. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to try it. So I show up.
Is either. So you can.
We'll find out in a second.
All right.
So I end up, I'm wearing white shorts and a white t-shirt.
Of course. Yeah, that's
right. Why not? Sense. So I get there. He sees me, he goes, what are you doing? Right? Like, and I'm like, this is my way of standing out, because I know we're going to get dirty. So I figured how to stand out, right? Wear white. So I get there and we pull into this facility, and it's a big swamp. I go, what are we going to catch in here? And it's basically a small crocodile. and there's 9 of them in this swamp, and I'm like, I've never even like seen an alligator up close,
Yeah, like
let
these things
alone
just
having
live around Toronto. Is that the what?
they were all over, right? So we end up just shooting over, and then it's get in the water, and then you're walking in this swamp that's about knee to waist high, and you're waiting till something bounces off your leg, and then you jump underwater and grab on.
Awesome.
I
That
thought
sounds like,
this is a wild experience,
yeah.
and absolutely loved every minute of it.
Okay.
Uh, and with Little Rays, we actually got to travel a lot. So I was traveling. I've seen most of Canada having traveled with them, and a large part of the US having traveled with them as well, and doing
Oh, really?
presentations.
I
And
didn't know they went that far. That's great.
yeah, oh yeah, it's an amazing organization, and so I felt lucky that I got to do all this, and then I still had that entrepreneur side, right? And I was talking to one of the past owners of Little Rays, who ended up being a curator in Calgary, and so I went out to see him one day. Took a trip out to Calgary, ended up talking to him, and he was like, "Hey, if you want, you can come here, right? Like I can probably try and find you a spot." And we had kind of discussed it a little bit, and I was very open to the idea. And it was again calling my brother, who, because I was on the verge, I was on that line of, do I get like that job that's a government secure, safe, well paying?
Right.
You're a zookeeper, you're working with conservation, you're doing everything you want to do, but you're 9 to 4, and at 4 o'clock you close the book, you go home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'll just move everything to Calgary. We'll grow from there. And at the same time, I'm like, I kind of want to start my own thing. I want to start my own organization, my own rescue organization. But because I'd worked with Little Rays, who mainly focused on reptiles,
Okay.
my experience was kind of all over, right? Like
Yeah.
I had worked with mammals, I'd worked with so many different types of animals.
Now, can you
So I thought,
tell me a little bit, like Little Rays, are they a rescue
they are,
themselves?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what they do as
So
well.
so I would say, give or take, and I don't want to put any numbers out here, but I'll give or take, don't quote me on it, is
Yeah,
about
no.
80% rescue, and then some they've acquired from other facilities, and
Okay.
they rehome a lot. I know they just took in a bunch of new snakes and everything from re-release into the wild. So it's a great organization. They do a lot of great work.
Oh, great.
And so I wanted to work more with the cute and fluffy as well as the reptiles, and kind
Sure.
of bring all my experience together. And so we were right on that line. And the thing is, I met my now wife, who's also the co-founder of the Keepers at Little Rays. We worked there together, and
Oh,
we were in
wow. Awesome.
Calgary together. And so, it was like, do we do this? Do we start our own thing? That was the line that we were at. And so I ended up calling my brother. I was in Calgary. I literally was meeting with the curator at the time, and I was like, I just need to step away for a second, and I need to make this decision now. So I called my brother, and I said, "Hey, if you could go back and try again, start over, and you could go back and open your own business, deal with every headache that you've had to deal with, or get your dream safe job that just gets you through it, and you're happy every day doing what you're doing, but you're working for somebody else." And immediately, without even letting me finish the conversation, he
Yeah.
goes, "It's a no-brainer. I'm starting my own business."
Really?
No
Eh?
brainer. No brainer. And right then and there, I went back to the curator. I said, "Thank you so much, but I'm going to start my own thing." Literally in that same span, I'm like, I'm going to bet on
Wow.
myself. I'm
Nice.
going to bet on myself. My wife, then girlfriend, we had been together less than a year.
Okay.
Less than a year. And it was like, let's do this. We both had the
Who's on board?
passion for animals. Let's
Nice.
just go.
I
And
love it.
so then 2016 happened, and the Keepers was born.
Keepers is born. That's great. So how did the Keepers start? How did it look like day one? You're like, all right, we're starting it. Now what?
So we actually started, and it was the fair game. So fairs and festivals.
Okay. Yeah.
We had done some fairs, and one thing I was very proud of was when we started, knowing I was starting this business, one thing I never wanted to do was burn any bridges.
Right.
Never
Awesome.
wanted to burn bridges. So I never went to any of the clients that we worked with
Okay.
and said, like, "Hey, by the way, next year I'm starting my own thing, so think of me next year." I'd never done that, and I'm very proud of that. So we literally started from nothing, right?
Wow.
And it was just basically like we wanted to get into fairs and birthday parties and schools. So it was a Facebook post and saying, hey, this is what we're doing now. And it was actually one of my old school teachers who was our first ever booking. And he booked us at his daughter's school in Rockland, actually. And
Cool.
I'll be forever grateful for him for doing that for us. And that was our first ever show. And
How did it
we
go?
ended up, sorry?
Did the show go well, the first show?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like thing is, I had done so many before that all I had to do was just change the name, and then kind of tweak it from there. But no, it was great, and we ended up buying a nice backdrop and really adding to the show, and just it was so surreal to be like, wow, this is my logo, this is what it is, and wow, and so much has changed. Now that I'm thinking back, so much has changed since then. But yeah, that was like our first ever and
Okay.
cool.
What was the first animal you got? What was the very first animal? How'd you get it?
So I was actually still with Little Ray's, and he ended up on our logo, actually. Yeah, right here, the chameleon.
Nice.
We were in Edmonton, Alberta, and we were on Kijiji. And I always look at Kijiji, and I always enjoy going to pet stores because, again, I'm all about education, right? And responsible pet ownership is all about research. And so I'm always on Kijiji looking at what people are trying to sell or trying to put out there and thinking like, oh, that might not be the smartest thing. Or if I go to a pet store, I'm always asking like, how long does the tortoise live? And they'll be like, oh, it lives 10 years. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. So you need to, again, you're giving the wrong information to people. And now they're stuck for life with this animal that they thought they knew about.
Yeah.
And so we saw this chameleon on Kijiji. And when I saw him, he had purple legs. All his legs were purple.
Wow. Okay.
And so I'm like, that's weird. So I messaged the person and I said, what's going on with the chameleon? I'm like, listen, I'm from Little Ray's. We're in town for a little bit and I'm just curious. And he goes, listen, what happened was I put a light in the habitat. And because chameleons have the ability to change colors, he went up to the light and he basically hit the light with his hands. He tried to grab onto it and burned all his legs in. So he can no longer change colors on his legs. And so he ended up with his purple legs. And when I was talking to him about what we do, he was like, listen, I feel very confident that you know what you're doing. So how about you just come take the lizard? Right. So when we started Meet the Keepers, Little Ray actually was very nice enough to be like, yeah, you can take him. So I ended up taking the lizard that I had rescued. So it was my first ever personal rescue. Nice. Was our veiled chameleon named Camilio Estevez. So very proud of that. And yeah, it gave me that urge to want to help as many animals. And realistically, what it developed to is that the Keepers is really giving a voice to these animals and really trying to speak for them in terms of, if you're going to get a pet, know what you're getting into, right? Not all pets are good pets. And so that's kind of what we're working on.
Yeah. Just because it looks cool on the your computer screen doesn't mean it translates well to you.
Exactly. Everybody loves the idea of having a monkey as a pet until you get a monkey and you realize, wait a second here, right? So it's it's the idea of everything and the perception. So we're trying to change the game and really help people with that understanding. So that was our first ever rescue in 2016.
Wow. Yeah. So what did you have for your first show? Do you remember? What kind of animals?
Oh, geez. No idea.
No.
You know what? I have no idea. I know we had a tarantula, the chameleon for sure. We would have had a snake. Other than that, it's changed so much. I could honestly, I have it all in writing, but just off the top of my head, the animals that we've rescued and had, I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could go through the list. I'm sure my wife could, but I'm like, I don't think I could do it. Not that I don't care about the animals, of course. It's just we've had so many varieties.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, did you start taking in a lot of animals quickly?
Oh, yeah.
Could word get out and you're like, okay, here we go.
So word got out very quickly, but we were doing it out of our home.
Okay.
So it was out of our home, and we realized that we'd run out of space very quickly, very, very quickly. And so we found a place that we could rent. And of course, it's a very difficult renting building, right? So we ended up being in the basement of a pharmacy.
Okay.
So our first center was in the basement of a pharmacy, and of course, a pharmacy, very sterile, very clean. And then we have animals in the basement, but all sorts. So we had free roaming pigs and free roaming skunks and
Wow.
just a wide variety of animals. And then realizing that, like, hey, these two businesses don't really blend in together.
No.
So we would try to do so much and as much as we could to control like the smell of the animals and control this and control that. And it was so difficult. And so we moved to Rockland. But the second we got the place in Bourget, underneath this pharmacy, it really put us on the map, which is a good thing, but a bad thing. So as you mentioned, did we get a lot of animals? It was nonstop.
Wow.
But it also opened our eyes to the devastating side of it. The
Okay.
devastating side of people willing to abandon animals.
Yeah, that's
Right?
terrible.
The dark side of it
Oh,
where
so terrible.
yeah, we were getting drop-offs and we were getting the real stories of people coming in. And I mean, just for an example, we off air at the beginning, we talked about like sometimes we'll even take in dogs. And there's cases where we take in dogs and we had gotten a dog dropped off and we ended up keeping her until she passed actually. Her name was Bella, very common dog name, but when we rescue animals, we tend to keep their names, again, giving them that voice. So we got Bella, and she was a basset hound, very, very lazy, very chill dog.
Sure.
And she came to us because somebody had basically been abusing her. And when the courts ended up taking the dog away, he was like, fine, you have to come get her. You might want to hurry. So he rushes home and just goes to town on the dog, just doesn't stop. So when we got her, she ended up having a broken leg, broken ribs. She was like, she had just been battered. So she had so many trust issues. And the second we meet her, she just curls up into our legs and just falls asleep. And so you're like, how do we say no to this? So
Right.
I ended up adopting her, and she was, normally what we'll do is we'll take in dogs, we'll get them comfortable, and then we'll foster them and find them right homes. But for her, it was instant. We just had to, we knew she was staying with us forever, and we gave her the absolute best life we possibly could, and
Right.
she was a sweetheart. So you really saw that side of things, and people were able to just come in whenever and just drop off animals. So when we moved to Rockland, we were right on the main strip in Rockland, and we had ended up putting up cameras just so we could see everything.
Yeah.
And people figured out where the cameras were, and they didn't want, so we had a no judgment, no questions asked. If you want to drop off an animal, drop off the animal. Like ideally we get as much information as we can, but not always the case.
Right.
And people were still so timid or shy or embarrassed, whatever the scenario was. So we had found a crate that was hidden beside the building on the main strip, just sitting in the sun, and it was just cooking, and it was a cat. And we ended up saving the cat, and one of our volunteers actually ended up taking the cat. Beautiful, beautiful cat. But people just didn't want to be on camera. So they would hide the cat and hope that you'd find it. And then we'd get calls, and people are like, well, I just left a bunch of raccoons at your door and I got to go. So you're like, well, we're not there. We'll be there in an hour, but it's super sunny already. Like, so we're trying to call somebody who can come pick them up and wait. So people wanted you to have the biggest heart in the world, but they were heartless in terms of that side of things. So it was very, very difficult to see that side of things, to see that part of people where you're thinking like, there's nobody that's actually able to do this. Nobody's actually like this. And then you realize, wow, yeah, they are.
More common than you think.
Terrifying. Yeah. So that's kind of how it worked there. And then when COVID hit, that was a whole nother story, right?
What happens during COVID? How does that affect you guys?
So we take in a lot of donations of people, and that's the other side of things, right? So we see the dark side of people.
Yeah.
And we have an amazing following, an amazing group of people who have just been with us following our journey, and just absolutely incredible. Like, I cannot thank people enough for what they've done. So yes, there's that dark side, but then when COVID hit, or anytime we have a new intake that we weren't expecting, and we're like, hey, if anybody can help out, right? And people are willing to give up so much to help us help animals. And it's incredible. It's unbelievable how much people are willing to do. And so when COVID hit, we realized like this is going to be tough. This is going to be tough.
Sure.
And to help us pay for the building that we had because we had doubled our rent when we moved to Rockland,
Right.
I went and got a job at a construction company in Rockland, and they were super flexible. Like they were so good with me as well. They knew I had the rescue. They knew I wasn't there for life. They knew, and I went in there thinking I'm just going to have like this mind numbing job that I just have to do to pay the
Yeah.
bills.
Yeah.
And they were so good that, I saw things that I could help with. They were super understanding, and we started changing a lot of stuff. And anyways, they were really good, and I appreciated that. And that was helping us pay the bills. So during COVID, I still had that income to help us pay those bills. But we got an interesting phone call during COVID. As we're about to lease a bigger building, as we're about to lease it, we're about to sign the lease, we get a call from Little Rays, where we had left in 2016. So now it's 2020, I guess, the end of 2020. And we're like, hey, listen, we're about to sign this lease in this new building. And he goes, hold off on that. Hold off on the lease. I think we should have a meeting. So we're like, we literally just got it in. So we have a little bit of time, but let's see. And so we have a meeting with him, and he goes, I think we should partner up. I think we should partner up, and we could do like take over the outreach or however we want to do it. So it was very quick because we're like, listen, we're leaving this building. We're about to head to this one. So we got to make these decisions. End up moving with him, partnering up with him is, we had known each other. We'd become friends over the years. And so it was a good seamless transition. Obviously certain things just work out, certain things don't. And that's just how it happens. So after a little bit, we realized like, hey, you know what? We're planning on moving now. Like our house, we're planning on moving, and we'd love to have the animals with us, right? So we end up looking, and then we end up looking during COVID, which what a nightmare that was. And that's a whole other podcast that you could go into, but still it was wild. We ended up putting offers on over 20 homes and never getting accepted. And so we were like, geez Louise, because people were just overbidding. So we found a home, ended up moving, but it's far, right? So we ended up moving really far out of town, but it's a beautiful forest home, and we were able to move all the animals in. And so that transition happened. Now we're back to on our own. We're still in very good contact with Little Rays, and we still talk very, very regularly, but we're now two separate entities, and it's been great now. So now all the animals are at home. We can really focus on the animals themselves. We don't have to go into the office, and now we can do all the outreach, and it's just been growing astronomically to the point now where we're hiring more staff and growing our organization. So
well, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Now, but like you said, even where you are now, it's never big enough.
Never big enough. I think if you gave me, I'll say IKEA right off the highway there, you could fill that in no time, right? Like, and then you're thinking like, oh, maybe if I get the rest of the mall, like there's so many animals. And that's the other thing is people don't understand how many animals there are to rescue and how many animals there are out there, where you think like when we show up and we have this big snake and people go, where'd you actually get that? Like you had to have purchased that from a zoo. And I'm like, no, there's more of these out here than you could possibly imagine, right? And it goes back to that added basically quote is there's actually more tigers in the state of Texas than there are in the wild. Right. So you're like, that's an insane fact, right? So it's wild. So that's what we're trying to establish and trying to put out there.
Wow. Yeah. You don't have any tigers, do you?
No tigers. Nothing. Like our pigs are our biggest animal. They're our big boys. We got Kevin Bacon and John Ham. Awesome. Love them to death. So that we actually have them in our backyard, so we can open the door. They can free roam our property, and they wander around. So it's a great.
As you go, right?
I think for now, that's pretty big. And as we grow and as we get to hopefully get our own building event, that's where we want to really expand and get into. Again, I want to stick to the rescue, so I can't even say like, oh, we want to get this and we want to get that. No, it's more of
you're not shopping for them. It's they're coming
exactly
to you, right?
Exactly. And there's no real site that you can go and be like, hey, I want I'm looking for 6 lions. Where do I go? So it's really a matter of making contacts and connections, and
Right.
knowing everybody or as many people in the industry that you can. So
Yeah.
that if I don't know somebody directly, then that person might know somebody. And so that's how this industry works. And it's a blast. It's a lot of fun.
Wow, that's great. Now, are there other rescue centers like yours in the area?
I think the closest one would be something similar to Little Ray's.
Lawrie, okay.
There's
So you're kind of unique.
a few small rescues, but again, very few and far between, and
Yeah.
they're not easy to find. But and again, it's from the outside in, it's a very odd style of business based on the fact that very few businesses in the world are kind of, well, this one's bad, so they're all bad.
Okay.
Right? When you think about it, but if you think of the word zoo,
Yeah.
you think, well, they're all bad. I don't agree with any of them.
Right.
And,
Exactly. Right.
and so very few businesses are like that. And now how I understand why people think that, right? And that's why, I mean, I'm on a very short list of people who believe that, when it comes to activists, in a way, like the extremists, that's where it becomes the issue. When they become all about money, it's very difficult. But when you're
Yeah.
there trying to do something good and it's not about the money, then you're keeping everybody accountable. And then it can actually be we can work together to understand, right? Because again, I want to give these animals a voice. So we're kind of, in a way, activists when
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
really
For
think
sure.
about it.
For sure. Yeah.
And so I believe that. Now, with that being said, we're working with the other rescues. As anybody else in business, you think, well, this is my competition. That's my
Right.
competition. For us, at the end of the day, we have to work together.
It's a network, right?
It's a network.
Yeah.
So we have to work together. And, if every one of us does birthday parties, I'll tell you this, there's enough birthdays in the city of Ottawa that we could all be successful at it.
Yeah.
Right. So if we can all work together, then we're even more successful. We're all on the same page. And that's where we coined the phrase "Unite for Wildlife." So we've started making contacts and trying to bring everybody together and understanding that if we unite, we're actually stronger and being able to really make a difference and changing the world for these animals.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. That's great. I love your vision. That's fantastic. Your whole thing. That's awesome. It's funny. I was trying to remember the quote that really I based this podcast off it's from We Bought a Zoo, one where you just have to have 20 seconds of just insane, and then wonderful things will happen, right?
Yeah.
And I just thought it was appropriate because we're talking about zoos and animals, and
Yeah.
that was the thing there. Wow, that's great.
I have issues with that movie. Not anything you'd think of. I have issues with that movie because I can't watch it without crying. So it's I've had the conversations he's had, and I'm fairly sensitive. So when I see that, I can't help but bawl my eyes out. So it's amazing film. But yes, I can't help but cry every time I see it. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just for me, I can't wrap my head around your business and the fact that it would just change so much all the time. Like you could build whatever facility you have, and you're like, okay, I have a facility, we have this many animals, this going on, we're good. And then tomorrow it all changes. To me, I have too much of a certainty mindset that I think I couldn't do it. I want to think I'm flexible, but not to the extent that you are. There's no way. That's
and here's the other thing, like as much as we're in the animal world, you have to think of it as a business as well. And you've spoken to my brother where he does the business coaching now, right?
Okay.
So it's through talking to him that I've realized, because at the end of the day, everybody assumes that their business is unique, right? And when it comes to mine, I'm like, nobody does what we do, and this is super weird and unique, and it's hard for this and that. And when you go down to like the brass tacks and the foundation of it, it is kind of similar. It's all the same at the end of the day. But of course, the day-to-day changes drastically.
Of course.
But what I'm learning now, and this is where in the business side, I've run the business how we run it day to day, where it's just so all over the place. It's nonchalant. It's like, yeah, whatever happens, happens. And now I'm realizing that I need to bring it all together, right? And that's what I'm learning today, is that I need to it isn't about being buddies with your staff, and it isn't about being
yeah, as much as you want.
nonchalant, you know.
Yeah,
I'm all about building systems now and understanding how it works. And like, now it's like an obsession to me is, you know, I have my employee handbook, policies and procedures, and
wow,
everything is just systemized now. And that's what I'm learning is for this to work, you have to have a system. You need to be able to track everything. You need to be
yeah.
able to see everything.
Yeah, you have to have
So
freedom. There's no, yeah, look, and like you said, the day to day is going to change. You got to be flexible there. But overall, as you're tackling any challenge or anything that comes up, you just go about it based on the system that you've set up and keep refining it and making it better. And
exactly. And then I'm sitting at home and I'm refining just so many little things now. And I'm finding it become like an obsession where I'm like, okay, what else can I work on? What else can I do? You know, and I just want to make everything perfect. And I just want to grow. And that's the part of having the business to yourself, right? Is really having the ability to do that, not ask somebody if I can or should I, or
right?
like, no, I want to know everything. I want to see everything. And then as I've understood it, now I'm going to delegate it. Now, once I know it, I'm delegating it. So
Wow.
when they have an issue, I can oversee it, right? And that's where I'm at, and I'm loving it.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, now, Kyle, you said that you guys started off doing sort of fairs, markets, those kind of things, right? At what
Yeah.
point did you transition to doing, say, birthday parties and going into schools?
Again, at the beginning, I would never say no. I would never say no. And if somebody was telling me like, hey, I got a birthday party, thing is, I'm in Brockville, I'm in Kingston, I'll be there. Sure.
Wow.
Right? Why not? And then somebody who's doing a birthday party down the street, I'm charging the same amount to go to Kingston.
Wow.
Meanwhile, it's costing me 8 times as much to do that one.
Sure.
But I'm like, hey, it's fine. I need the bookings, right? I need it to come in. So yes, I'd say yes to everybody. So if I was doing a fair one weekend, then I'd have to leave the fair to go do a birthday party. And there was no structure. There was no basis. There was nothing. It
right,
was
you're just starting out. You need,
you need everything you can get. And
Absolutely.
again, that's where my mentality of never say no. It actually worked out great at the beginning, right? For my wife and I, we found this. We were like, we got to pay our bills here. At the end of the day, I got to feed my family, or we got to feed our family, and let's just go for it. So there is no saying no. And as it starts flowing, as you start realizing like, hey, wait a second, this is costing us this much, this is costing us this much, we need to maybe charge more for this one. So let's charge mileage if we have to go outside of this ratio. And so again, it's that structure. So understanding that, huge, super important. Yeah.
Nice. And then at some point you got into the schools.
The schools, yeah. So again, the school was our first ever show. And so that was like, whoa. And then how do you get into more schools, right? And thing is, now our next step is going to be the marketing side. Because till now, from 2016 till 2024, so we're talking 8 years on marketing alone, we've spent maybe $1,000, $2,000.
Wow.
In 8 years. It's word of mouth. Our entire business is based on word of mouth.
Wow.
And again, something we're super, super, super proud of, right? But now I'm at the point where I feel as though we've learned that foundation. We've built that foundation. Now we can start expanding. And, you know, some people can start expanding after 3 months. Some people can start after a year. I feel confident and comfortable now that after 8 years, you know, some people might say, well, that's way too long. Some might say it's still not long enough, right?
Yeah, there's no rule to that. I think
there is none.
You know,
there is none at all.
Doing. Yeah.
Exactly. So now I feel confident that we're ready to grow. And so I've scripted the presentation so that everything's going to be the same. Everybody's going to give the same presentations that we grow. Right. So it's, again, all systems based. This is how it is. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. This is what you do. This is your day to day. I've done it all now. I've done it for 8 years. I know. Right. And so that's where we're at now. And I'm confident that we can grow, but it's all word of mouth. 100% been word of mouth till now.
Wow.
And it continues to be. But yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And now it's just, now you're at a point where you've got it all down to a science almost. It's just now it's time to go to the next level, right?
Absolutely. And I've worked for some amazing places that were just it's very like sporadic, and there is no systems, and it's just learn how to do a show and you'll figure it out. And I'm like, that's terrifying to me, to let somebody just take my business and just go off. You'll be fine. Don't worry
Sure.
about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's wild. So my wife and I decided that that's not how we're going to do it. We've built a very positive and strong name for our organization. And we want to we have such high standards for our team. And we want to continue those high standards and keep growing in that sense where, there's a lot of expectation, but there's also, it's very a rewarding position in terms of just working with the animals and getting a chance to see them and being a public figure at the end of the day, where people do look up to you and kids look up to you. And, it's a role now where kids want to do this when they get older. So it's something to be very proud of. And
for
you're on
sure.
stage with a microphone, and people are listening, and you have a voice and you're giving the animals a voice. So it's so rewarding to really get that response from people. And we've thrown in a bit of a comedic edge to the presentation. So you're getting a laugh out of the parents, and 100%.
People into learning, right?
100%. 100%. Exactly. And I've been a big fan of like the Disney concept, right? Where you'll watch a Disney movie and it's 100% for kids, but it's really 98% for kids.
Yeah.
And you get that 2% of that innuendo joke or that one thing where you're like, wait a second. And the kids are completely oblivious to it. And the parents are like, I see what you're doing. And that's basically what our presentation is. It's like there's those little subtle hints where you're like, hey. So it's for everybody, and everybody can get involved.
That's the way to do it. Yeah, smart.
Yeah. And that's how we based it on, and I'm loving every minute of it. Now, don't get me wrong, some days are harder than others.
Well, like you said, some days are harder than others, but you also don't get days off, right? Like it is a 7-day-a-week operation running.
Like we talked about, Christmas isn't a thing to these animals, and
no, they don't
New Year's or so if I have a family brunch with my family and on Christmas Day, I'll be there at past noon because I got stuff to do in the morning. So you get up at 6 and make sure everything's done before you can leave. And so now, vacations are difficult too because you can't just leave.
That's what I was gonna say. So vacation, do you guys get to take time off at all?
So I actually got a chance to go see my brother in Nicaragua.
Nice.
But I had to leave my kids and leave my wife here, and so going on a trip together is not the easiest. So
I'll bet.
Yeah. So it's we have to make some sacrifices, and we were with both of our passions, we were willing to make those sacrifices, and that's kind of how we've grown since.
I mean, heck, it's not like I mean, you're living in an adventure every day, so it's
basically.
Maybe a little downtime would be nice though, but that's fantastic.
It's living in an adventure where you're talking to people, and my sisters, for example, have a huge fear of like bugs and snakes, and meanwhile, at my place, there's tarantulas and scorpions and snakes. Now they're not walking around the living room; they have their own little space, but just the idea that they're within the vicinity of where you are, it tends to make people a little nervous. Like my favorite animal to present is the tarantula, just because of the reaction that you get. The smallest animal we have during our show is the biggest reaction, and
I think that's the classic animal, though, right? Everyone has a big fear, and everyone's scared of tarantulas, and it's been horror movies and all that fun stuff. But then you get down, it's just a cute little fuzzy guy, right? It doesn't do
100%. And when you get somebody that's really afraid who ended up facing their fears, it's a memory that they are gonna have for the rest of their lives.
True. Yeah, they'll remember. I remember that time I touched the tarantula, right? They'll be telling that story for sure.
And I will say another one that's really means a lot to us is working with special needs for sure, because again, they get that experience, but working in retirement homes.
Right.
Working in retirement homes is where you bring in a tarantula. And I remember I had a 92-year-old woman who told me, I've never held a snake or a spider in my life.
Okay.
And she's like, I've always been afraid. And she goes, what do I have to lose? Give me the spider. And I thought, what an experience that is, right? Yeah. What an experience for me, but also for her. And it was so touching to see that like interaction and just understand that, this person's just thinking, let's just get over this now. And even at 92, thinking, I'll get over a fear today. And she gave her that opportunity. And it's a moment I'll never forget, for sure.
Yeah, right. So it's unforgettable moments for you as well.
There's unforgettable moment. I would say once a week I get an unforgettable moment.
Right.
It's yeah. And having that pride of being in that position where, again, I'm on stage with a microphone, and I have that pride of having created a role where kids want to be that when they grow up. And
that's
it's so nice to see, and when they're really invested and they want to know more, and how do I do it, which path do I take, and just being able to help them with that. You can't even put it into words how that feels, right? So
very rewarding. That's
100%.
Yeah, you're living the dream. That's fantastic. You found your passion, you went after it, and now you're being rewarded for it. That's what else can you ask for? I mean, look, obviously you're saying it with a smile on your face, and I know that every day is not like, sunshine and rainbows, and I'm sure you have your challenges. But I mean, at the end, your soul is complete.
100%. And it's that, again, that altruistic type of, it's that if you build it, they'll come, and it was that where no marketing, just, hey, if you can mention this to a friend, and I would really appreciate that, and it's happening. So, but being able to take everything that I've learned, and having never said no to an opportunity, to now being able to bring everything I learned into one and just explode it into my passion, has been the most rewarding thing you could ever imagine.
Awesome. Well, Kyle, I'm going to cut it off here. I'm going to thank you for your time. I really appreciate learning about your wildlife rescue and all the great things you guys are doing with Meet the Keepers. I'm going to wish you tons of success. I really hope you guys can expand the way that you want to. I hope one day you can house all the animals that you want, which I know that's an impossible dream. But anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kyle. Take care.
You too.